The next Lee and Ian podcast is approaching the station. Please step aside.
Welcome to the Lee and Ian Show. I'm Lee Navlin.
I'm Ian Grodman.
The Lee and Ian Show is sponsored by Grodman Law and Mediation. Remember, when it comes to divorce, family first. That's Grodman Law and Mediation. And South Orange-based psychotherapist Amy Cox Martins. Amy can help you or a loved one find solutions to life's most difficult questions. Ian, our guest, we're thrilled to have him.
Thrilled.
Absolutely thrilled. He's Max Kravitz, and he is running for the Maplewood Township Committee. Max, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, Lee. How are you?
We are great. Max, I really appreciate you coming down. I know you're so busy. You have a matter of fact, this is Thursday. We're not going to get the podcast out to Friday, so people aren't going to hear me say that you're having an event tonight.
I am. I'm having an event at
Tell us about it, yeah.
the Avenue Pub, hosted by Frank McGeehee and Deborah Engel, former mayor and current Township Committee person whose seat I'm running to fill. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be a great chance for me to meet some constituents here in Maplewood and just talk about the issues, talk about why I'm running, what I'm passionate about, and get people ready to vote.
Now, for those who didn't attend, because it already happened, even though it hasn't happened in our world, but in your world, like one of those movies, where the future and the past.
It's like that Harry Potter thing,
that's
right?
right.
Where
It's
you
like
go back in time.
Right, it already kind of happened, but it didn't happen. But anyway, Max, what I love about your campaign, and I've been paying attention, is you're out there, you're meeting people, you're greeting people, you're asking them about what their concerns are, you're addressing their concerns. Now, you're a young guy, a 2023 graduate of Columbia High School?
Correct. I graduated class of 23.
So think about that, Ian. That's a mature dude right there.
It's amazing. From the first time I met Max, and Max told me that he was interested in running, he was interested in getting involved in local politics, I was just excited because we're always looking for young people to get more involved in what's going on politically. And Max has stepped up to the challenge at 20 years old. I give him a lot of credit.
And again, he's asking questions and he's listening and he's addressing issues that we have. So Max, just talk a little bit about that process.
I decided to run for the Maplewood Township Committee about, I think, the end of March. So I was a little bit late to it.
Right.
But ever since then, I've just been full steam ahead doing everything. I've been knocking on doors. I've been going to events. I've been tabling. I've been taking questions online and in person. And I think that it's given me a completely different perspective on Maplewood and the work that our leaders put into their jobs. So I'm incredibly grateful for this opportunity, and I'm excited for the rest of the campaign.
Now, what I'm impressed with not only is the way you've handled this years, almost as if you've been doing this for years, but you're welcome. Yeah, you've gotten the endorsements of some rather important people. You mentioned Deb Engel. Frank McGeehee, I believe, has endorsed you as well. These are important people in the community that have made a difference themselves. Talk about that a little bit. How do you reach out to Frank McGeehee and say, I know you were mayor, I know you've run for assembly, and I'm 23. Am I doing my math correct?
I'm 20.
He's 20.
Yeah.
You're 20. That's how good I am at math, Ian. You're 20 years old, but I need your endorsement. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I think that's an amazing thing.
No, yeah. So my first ever political campaign was Frank McGeehee's assembly campaign back in 2023.
Okay.
I had met him through the Youth Advisory Committee, which I served on while I was a teenager, and he was the chair. And I got to know him through that, and I got to see all of the work he was doing. And when he decided to run for assembly, I was like, "Get me on board. I want to. How can I help?"
I like this. I like what you're doing, and and Deb Engels. As you said, you're running to replace her. Now she just actually reached out to me earlier and sent me a text telling me about the event tonight. Unfortunately, I cannot attend because it's my wife's birthday. So I apologize, but I will be there in spirit. So McGeehee, now he's a Mets fan, I believe, right?
I don't know off the top of my head.
I think he might be. Is he a Mets fan? Do we know McGeehee?
I don't know the answer
Because I
to
know
that.
Victor Luca is a Mets fan.
Yes, Vic is.
So you're wearing a Yankees hat. So will you be able to serve with Victor Luca? He's a Mets fan. I guess that's my first question to you.
There may be some complications, but I'm sure we can work it out.
Well, based on this past weekend, I think you could walk in with your chin up high.
Certainly.
That's right. So my other question, I guess, now, Mayor Nancy Adams, will you feel comfortable serving with somebody 50 years your senior? Sorry, Nancy. I had to ask that question.
Yes.
Right,
I think
Nancy's not 70.
No, she's not 70. But you know, you would be serving with an older generation of people, and just talk a little bit about, you know, maybe your experience working with the next generation, the older generation of, because you know, I know some young people that look at me like I'm a dinosaur. You don't seem to have that impression of you seem like, hey, I get where you're coming from, and
You appreciate older people.
You
Yeah.
appreciate us, yes.
you guys aren't fossils yet. No, I'm joking. No, I think that I have learned a lot from people who are older than me, and I think people who are older than me have learned a lot from me as well. And that I don't think that's any different from people who are the same age. I learn a lot from my friends. My friends learn a lot from me. And I think that what the Township Committee could definitely benefit from is having a more diverse range of ages being represented. Right now,
Absolutely.
it is predominantly a older adult committee, and historically there haven't been any young adults on the committee. And you look at the programming in our township, that kind of reflects that. You see a lot of stuff for kids, you see a lot of stuff for seniors, but there isn't much going on for young adults. And right now in Maplewood, there are a lot of young adults, especially now because it's the summer.
Absolutely.
But also, I'm seeing a trend of a lot of young adults moving back to Maplewood after college, whether that's for the affordability of living with your family,
Very astute.
the economic opportunity that our community provides, and the ease of access to the city, or just the fact that housing is so inaccessible everywhere in the country. There's a national housing crisis.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's not. Yeah, back in the day, you could move to New York or Hoboken with two friends or whatever. You know, now it's like you need like 8 friends to be able to afford
That's
it.
right.
And,
A 2-bedroom apartment.
yeah, so you come back, you save money, but but even young families that are moving into the area, they're in their early 30s, 32, 33. You're not that far removed from where they are in life, too. You know, so you could experience what their understand their pain
Exactly.
and work with them. Now.
And also, talking about Max working with older people, right? Max has been very involved in what's going on in town for several years, right? Since he was a student at Columbia High School. You know, he's on the youth advisory committee. He's been involved in politics over the course of the last year or two. So he's been very involved with working with older leaders in particular in the community. So he's got some experience with that. I think it'd be an easy transition for him.
Yeah. So Max, so you're 20, you graduated 2020 Columbia High School.
2023.
2023. What's going on since before you decided to get into the political arena?
So after in my senior year, I decided I want to study music business because while I was at the high school, I got involved with the arts. I started Beat Fest, which is like the first ever student-run music festival at a high school in New Jersey.
That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then, so that kind of just showed me that there is a lot of power and a lot of fulfillment that can come out of connecting with people through the arts, through music, live music. And I decided I want to study that. So I attended Middle Tennessee State University for about a year and a half, where I studied music business, and I had a great time. I was putting on concerts. I was managing some artists here and there, making some music with friends. But then after the election, I'd say I had a reevaluation of where I was in life, what I wanted to do, and what was important to me. And so I decided that I wanted to take some time, move back home, and just get involved with the community, because Maplewood is an amazing community. It's the community that raised me. I would not be where I am today without the people in Maplewood, and I wanted to give back. And so ever since, I want to say November, I've been showing up. I've been getting involved with Soma Action. I volunteered with them. I filmed the gubernatorial debate at the Woodland. I got involved with the Maplewood Democratic Committee.
That's right.
I've been doing a little stuff here and there wherever I can to help out. And I've just been doing anything I can to help out.
Ian, this isn't so unusual, a young guy running. Sheena Collum was just a few years
She
out of
was,
school
I
herself.
was right out of college when she ran.
When she ran from Seton Hall, and as we can see, she's been one of the most effective leaders Soma has ever had. So
And statewide, even she's so well regarded that a gubernatorial candidate asked her prior to the election to be his lieutenant governor.
yeah, and you remind me so much of her because you listen.
Thank you.
You're just
That's quite a
forthcoming. You're
compliment.
friendly.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first met Sheena, it was as if I had met like the coolest person I was ever going to meet. That's the first impression she gives you, and I get the same vibe dealing with you. You're just a cool kid, and
Cool young man.
Cool young man. That's right. You really at this point. But Max, I'm looking. Your campaign kickoff. Some of the issues now that are important to you.
Also, Lee, if you didn't know,
before I get to that,
Max is a third-generation Maplewoodian. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that, Max?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yeah. So, I'm a third-generation Maplewoodian and third-generation Soma resident, kind of on both sides. My grandfather, Roland Spiata, he grew up in South Orange. He went to Marshall. He went to Columbia High School. And then he moved to Maplewood with his wife once they got married, Esther Spiata. And they raised my mom and her siblings there, Brookside Road. And they didn't go to Columbia High School. They went to a variety of private schools. But on my dad's side, my grandparents, Howard and Esther Kravitz, they lived in South Orange. My dad grew up in South Orange. And they started, I think, the longest running performing arts school in Essex County, Performers Theater Workshop.
Very cool.
And so my parents, my dad also went to Columbia High School. I should mention that. But so now my parents run that. It's the family business. And so I kind of grew up around the arts. I grew up in Maplewood. I grew up with this feeling of there's continuity here in our town. There's history. There's something to work towards because I've seen that what it was, what it's become, and what it could be.
Yeah,
That's great.
I mean, so many people have moved here the last couple of years, and they want to understand Soma. They want to become part of the community. I mean, you're like an encyclopedia of what it's like today, what it was like yesterday, what it was like 2 generations ago. Brookside Drive, that's right by Jefferson School.
Correct. Yeah.
So it's got the 2 roads with the brook right in the middle. I guess right. That's
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I know that.
It's a really nice little street.
Yeah, I used to cut through there on my walk home from the train.
Sure.
So you might have been like the kid on the bicycle 15 years ago.
That Lee was yelling at, get out of the road!
That's right.
Okay.
Now, the reason I was yelling, get out of the roads, because I do think that the roads, and this is nothing new.
Great segue
There's,
here.
right. These
Yes.
are some dangerous roads, Prospect, Valley, people speed. I know at the top of your issues that you want to address is increasing pedestrian and road safety. You've made that number 1 on your list.
I did, and that was intentional. Right now, there are many accidents, whether they're pedestrian accidents, biker accidents, car accidents in our township, and a lot of them are preventable. We can create the infrastructure in our township to make our streets safer, and we can do that by creating bike lanes. We can do that by adjusting how some of our intersections function, and we can also do that just by slowing down our streets, maybe adding a couple stoplights, because I live on Valley, right off Valley, and I have very vivid memories of when I was younger. There were many accidents at my intersection, kind of in the Pearson area, if you know there. And one of my neighbors actually lobbied to get a stoplight there, and there haven't been any accidents since.
That's great.
So the light's there now.
The light's there now.
It's the one by Pearson's Mill.
Correct,
Oh,
Pearson
yeah.
and Valley.
Yeah, there's more stop signs, more lights, but still, people are jumping off of to get to 78, and it's a throughway to some degree. And there was a student that was just hit this past year, I believe, early in the school
On
year.
Prospect Street.
Yeah, so I mean, it really should be at the top of any candidate's list or elected leaders list of things to keep paying attention to. So
And if I could, right, I want to give Max all the opportunity to talk about the things that are important to him. And we're talking about traffic and pedestrian safety. There are other traffic-related concerns that Max has been talking about. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that as well? Transportation, I should say.
Yeah, so on top of making our streets safer, part of that is providing the opportunities for people to have alternative modes of transportation so that we can get more cars off the road. And so Maplewood currently has a jitney service, and it primarily serves commuters. And we also have a senior bus service, which serves seniors. But there aren't many options for young people, adults, or young adults to get around our town without biking or driving. And I think that's something that I experienced firsthand. A lot of my friends experienced firsthand is that once you get to a certain age, you're kind of just driving around everywhere because it's the only way to efficiently get around. And so what I want to do on the Township Committee is figure out how can we provide additional services because we own the buses and they're not operating on weekends. They operate with limited hours. And how can we make these buses that are just sitting around work for our community? Because that investment would pay off. We would get more people at our local businesses. We would get more cars off the streets. We would just make it easier for people who don't have access to cars to get around. One thing that I think about is the fact that there's a lot of parents who have kids who are kind of in this little awkward period where they can't drive, but they have responsibility and they have agency. But they have to go and pay for a sitter or a driver to get their kids around town after school. And that's something that I think the township can step in and be like, let's help you out. Let's figure out how we can work together to get everybody around and get more cars off the road, because that's the most important part.
Sure. Yeah, I like that idea where you might have the jitney operating on weekends, maybe to get kids, from to the football game, home from the football game, safely. Not only so they don't get hit by a car at night, but just safety in general. So that's a great idea. They're sitting around, not being used.
That's it.
Yeah. So
there's things they could be doing during the day.
Things they could be doing.
It all costs money, but there's ways to try to work that out. So.
Correct.
Yeah.
And additionally, there would be more people riding the jitney if additional services were provided. There's potential for making a clearer rental policy for the jitneys to generate more revenue when they're not being used by the township. And with all of the developments that are currently being worked on by the township, there's a potential for creating certain deals when it comes to the movie theater site, as we've seen with the post office redevelopment.
Yeah, no, outstanding. Yeah. So talking about now, one of your points, bullet points, is making cost of living more affordable.
Correct.
Okay, so if you could figure that out, I know that there'll be a lot of people voting for you.
You'll become president. You can't do that till you're 35.
That's right.
I can't.
Yeah.
36.
36?
Yes.
I didn't know. I always thought it was 35.
It's 36.
Maybe we could run at 35 and maybe
that's it.
take
I think
off at
that's it.
36, maybe something like that. Yeah. So just talk a little bit about look. Affordability is a big issue. We talked years ago. Well, they were going to put apartments in, and that was maybe going to reduce the tax base. I'm not sure that ever. So, but it wasn't like it was a bad idea. It was like, let's just try and see.
Sure.
And see how this works. So talk a little bit about how you foresee doing something in that regards.
No, yeah. So affordability, it's a very difficult issue. There's no one size fits all answer to addressing affordability. It's very broad. There's housing affordability, transportation affordability, food affordability. And so each different demographic has its own needs, which would have to be tackled individually. One thing that has been on my mind a lot recently is seniors. A lot of seniors who are living on fixed income are getting priced out of housing because of rent increases. And Maplewood does have a rent control ordinance, but it hasn't been updated since 2007, and the rent leveling board is completely vacant as of right now. So that is one thing that we can do to make living more affordable in Maplewood and more consistent so that people can plan long term. We also need to build some more housing. Maplewood is obligated by New Jersey law to build, I believe the number is 216 new units in the next 10 years. And what I want to do is make sure that affordable units. And but with that comes even more units which will have to be built. And what I want to see with these new units that get built is that we have some of those allotted for senior housing so that seniors can continue to live affordably in our township. And that is something that actually is very close to me because my grandfather and grandmother, they ended up moving out of their home, which they lived in for 50 years.
Wow.
Because if you're living on fixed income and you're living in a very expensive home, it's not feasible in the long term to continue living there, which is very unfortunate. But we want to make it possible for people who have created roots in this community to stay here.
Right.
Because in my view, that's the most important thing.
You know, Ian, 100% agree with what Max is saying. When I moved to Maplewood in '98, all my neighbors, and at the time I was a little frustrated about it because we had a little baby, but they were all in their 60s and 70s. My neighbor was actually 90. He was still living in his house. By the time I sold that same house in 22 years later, I was by far the old man on the block, and here I was just cracking 50, early 50s, because, all those, they died and some left, but the new people that kind of came in, some of them were moving up because the taxes got too high, right? So that's figuring out a way because my parents were able to stay in their house forever, but I wasn't. So I do appreciate that.
Of course. Thank you.
I mean, to Max's point, when you look at the population of Maplewood, right, it's a very family-oriented town, right? And the age that most people are here is, probably between like 30 and 60 or 65, with children or, young adult children, and then they move on, right? Or they come into Maplewood from the city and Brooklyn and Hoboken and Jersey City and all these places once they can no longer stay in a one-bedroom apartment with a new baby and, need more space. So.
Yeah. So changing the subject a little bit, now, Ian, I guess full disclosure, you are the chair of the Maplewood Democratic Committee.
That is correct.
Okay,
I am.
So the Maplewood Democratic Committee endorses candidates for Township Committee.
Yes.
Okay, so Max, you're running. You did not get the endorsement of the Maplewood Township Committee.
I did not.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Max. Why don't you?
Okay, but just talk a little bit. Now, that doesn't mean you can't win because, as we just saw, Malia Herman said, no, you could easily win. Greg Lembrick was another, he ran off of the. So, this is not uncharted water. This is a very winnable race for you, especially the way you're handling it. But, talk about that whole process a little bit.
No, yeah. So I don't have the Maplewood Democratic Committee endorsement, but I also did not apply for the endorsement because I decided to run after the endorsement
So you never had an opportunity to throw your into that ring.
Exactly.
And if I may,
yes.
I'm sure that Max would have been endorsed if he had applied in time. I think it's important for people to recognize the Maplewood Democratic Committee is a leader statewide in how we handle endorsements for our local candidates. The Maplewood Democratic Committee has a very open process and timeline for people to get involved if they'd like to seek the endorsement of the Democratic Committee. In Maplewood, we give people a lot of time to provide information to us beforehand. We have an open public forum where we interview anybody who's seeking the endorsement of the committee before the general public, so the general public can see everything that we're doing.
Right.
And then if 40% of our committee feels that somebody is a worthy candidate, we will endorse them. If 10 people come to us that we believe are good candidates, we will endorse all of them, even if only one of them can actually win the seat that fall.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So it's right. Gotcha. So that's changed a little bit over the years. I know
it's changed a lot,
which is just part of the world we live in.
That's it.
You change with the times.
And Maplewood is always a leader with reforming the way internal party politics work, and we continue to do that to this time. Even when we had Garnett on last week talking about this Democratic Party convention for the county. Right? We were the leaders in making sure that happened. It wasn't exactly handled the way we had hoped, but we continue with these efforts.
Yeah. No,
and let me add on to that. I have great relationships with many members of the Maplewood Democratic Committee.
He's wonderful. We love him.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. So when I ran many years ago, I lost. I had actually ran to try to get the endorsement. I didn't get it. And when Ian actually called to tell me it wasn't getting the endorsement, I got a little... well, I'm going to run anyway, and I'll show you. And I was really getting... And so Ian said, let's meet for coffee. And I said, okay. And we met. And that's how we got to be friends, because Ian basically said, okay, if you want to run, here's what you need to do. So it wasn't a matter of like, okay, so we didn't pick you, and now you're a loser. We
I don't care about you anymore.
Yeah, right. Ian was you were really hell-bent on making sure that everybody running, had an opportunity to not only win, but to better understand what the community wanted from their leaders. And I never
agree with that.
Yeah,
I do agree with that.
Yeah, and I never forgot that. It wasn't a matter of, you're dead to us now.
Right.
It was like, well, look, if you want to win, we hope you do, but here's what you're probably going to want to focus on. Has Ian shared his expertise with you, Max, or is this the first time here on live on the radio? Ian, is any,
I'll let Max answer
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yes.
No, yeah. So Ian has been a wonderful help in advising certain aspects of running a campaign. I listened to your guys' episode about the Township Committee, and I recall him saying, reach out to him if you have any questions. And he's answered all of the questions I've thrown at him amazingly. And nothing has ever been up to interpretation. It's always very clear. And I'm grateful that he is an amazing resource that our community has, not only for the committee, but also for everybody wanting to get involved with politics.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, he's also the greatest vice mayor in the history of Maplewood.
Yes, the greatest vice mayor in history. Yes.
No, that's right. I did say on the air that anyone and everyone should reach out to Ian after that broadcast, just so you know. Ian said, "What did you say that for?"
I never said that.
Why don't you just give him my phone number?
No, feel free to call.
No, he didn't say that.
Just try to call normal hours.
Yeah. But so just talking a little bit about your opponent who has the endorsement. Now, Ian, you don't have to say anything here, but I think you're working a lot harder than she is to win this election. And you don't have to say anything either, Max, but, or do you want to say something about that?
I would just say that I think both of the candidates are working very hard in taking this election seriously.
Yeah. And one so far has agreed to come on the podcast.
I did agree to come on the podcast.
Yeah. But just so how did you know that you got to hit the ground running on this? So we'll put it to you that way. How did you know that that's not something you say, hey, a lot of guys your age might have I'm just going to go on social media and I'm just going to post things about you. But you're doing more than that. You're out, like you said, knocking on doors and you're listening. Who told you to do that? Or was it just something you kind of understood from paying attention to politics?
I mean, it from the moment I decided to get in the race, the clock was ticking. It's a very short election window, very short campaign window, and I want to win. So I just had to do everything that I can. Yeah. And I mean, I have an amazing campaign manager, Rowan Wexler. He was 1 year my junior at Columbia High School. Yeah. And he's been an amazing help. He has a lot of experience in Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, working with their Democratic committee, specifically with the Harris campaign and a couple of other local races. But he has brought a lot of experience and a lot of discipline to this campaign, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And I think that's reflected in what people are seeing around town. And a lot of people are excited to see a contested primary with two very serious candidates.
Yep.
Right.
And a lot of people who know me are very excited that I'm running because they know my track record of community service, getting involved. And so they've been like, where's my son? Drop one off. And and it's been amazing. And I think that it's been hard. It's been very energy draining, as I'm sure you guys both know.
Yes, we do.
Two experienced primary candidates here in Maplewood.
Yep.
But it's been amazing. As I mentioned earlier, I've been meeting people and I've been learning new things about Maplewood I never thought were here.
And I'll just add, to that a lot of times when people run for Township Committee in Maplewood, it's the first time that they're really involved in politics. And I mean, certainly that's true of Max, but Max is wise beyond his years regarding politics and how politics work. He's obviously been involved for quite some time, but he really does get the way that politics works.
Especially in this area. For your parents were here, your grandparents were here, so you understand this area, you understand what's important in this area. You probably paid more attention than most young guys about how the politics in the area work or how the Maplewood Township Committee works and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that's a huge advantage too.
Absolutely.
As opposed to somebody.
Absolutely.
And we've had people move here and run for office. I'm not going to mention names, but they were here for a year or 6 months or 9 months, and they decide they're gonna.
And then they left.
And right, yeah.
Well, then they ran.
Oh, they ran, or you're right, and they lost, or they won, or they
Right.
they decided it wasn't for them. So you really do know what you're getting yourself into. So
Yep.
that's now. If they don't want to vote for you because of pedestrian safety, which they're nuts, they should vote for you because that's
They should.
If they don't want to vote for you because of the cost of living, if they don't want to vote for you because of transportation, maybe they want to vote for you because you are hell bent on strengthening the arts in Maplewood.
We do. We need to do that. I'm a member of the Maplewood Arts Council. I think my service and volunteering in our community reflects the fact that I'm very passionate about the arts, and I have a very good understanding of the arts in our community. As I mentioned earlier, while I was in high school, I put on a music festival at Columbia High School, the first ever. It's still going.
Yeah, that's
and
great.
now I'm on the Maplewood Arts Council, and we're talking about how do we use our spaces that the township owns to better optimize the process of which people get access to those spaces, create more economic opportunity for our residents who are artists, who want to put on events, who want to display their art. And then we also need to figure out how can we generate revenue for the township more efficiently with these spaces. And so what I think we need, and I think what was outlined in the 2023 Maplewood Master Plan, is we need an arts and culture master plan that creates a framework for artists, businesses, organizations to interface with the township through the arts, so that they're not just going to this one person who they think may know how to get access to a facility, because that's the case right now. There isn't a lot of transparency, and there are a lot of like backroom deals. I wouldn't say backroom deals, but it's
No backroom deals in Maplewood.
no, yeah. But I'd say more so like you need to be in the know to get access to the spaces, and I wouldn't put that fault on any one person. It's more so a lack of a plan.
Yeah, you know what? It's not backroom, but it's who you know and not who you know. It's how you get the information, because some things aren't just, they're just not necessarily.
Exactly.
If you want to throw, for instance, I used to throw comedy shows to produce shows in Maplewood, and I had to jump through hoops to. I want to rent the space. And, okay, yeah, you talk to so and so. Okay, we want to sell beer at it. Okay, now you have to talk to so and so.
Right.
Okay, and you know, and then they said the day of, they said, you got your event insurance? Event insurance? What are you talking about? Event insurance?
Right.
You know, so what do I do about that? Oh, you've got to call this number. So it wasn't like it wasn't like anybody was avoiding me or blowing me off. It was just like, oh, you didn't know that already, and that type of thing. So don't assume, you know, that people are. That's basically what you're saying. Let's provide more of a roadmap, you know, on how we could produce events. And so
Some better coordination.
better coordination. So I'm absolutely down with that. Yeah, 100% down with that. So I appreciate that. You mentioned the local, your youth advisory committee when you were
Correct.
growing up. What I've heard of that. Is that the ones you see speaking at the school board meetings, the youth advisory committee, or is that something a little bit different?
So the school board, what I believe you're talking about,
Yeah.
the high school elects 2 Board of Ed representatives
Right.
out of their student body to just give reports about what people want from the school board, or I should say what young people who are in our schools want from the school board. But the Youth Advisory Committee is under the Maplewood Township Committee. It's a municipal boarding committee,
Oh, okay.
just like the Recreation Advisory
Yes.
Committee,
Right,
Senior Advisory Committee. So this is the Youth Advisory Committee. And so they, in the same way that all of the other committees operate, they have a chair, they have priorities, and they work on projects. One project I know that the Youth Advisory Committee was big on was during COVID, they worked to get a transportation app created for young people who may have
That's great.
trouble getting a ride home at night after maybe a
Oh, I
party.
remember
Right.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they were like, let's make an app so that our young people can get around safely at night and they don't have to be concerned about an Uber driver.
Right.
Right.
Because that's an uncontrolled variable.
Sure. Who's picking my kid up?
Exactly.
Yeah, right. You know, he has a driver's license, so Uber hired him. You know, basically. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think, to that point also, kind of expanding a little bit on that, you know, I don't know if people know, Maplewood has several advisory committees, all made up of citizen members. The Township Committee takes very seriously the work that these advisory committees do. takes it all into account and coming up with planning and coming up with new ordinances. It's a great way for people in town to get involved in a way, specifically if there's a specific area that they have an interest in, it's a great way to get involved and help to steer the direction that the town is going. So that's an important thing to get out there as well.
And
Not
if
to take away from Max, but yeah.
And if you're a young person listening, you don't have to only join the youth advisory committee.
That's right.
There are young people on all of the municipal board and committees.
That's right.
And so
I'm the attorney for the community board on police. We always have a youth member. So all of these committees, have, and I think I've spoken to you about that.
yeah, but
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken, you guys do need a youth member
Yes, we
right now.
do.
So if you're listening and you're a young
I
person,
mentioned your name at the last meeting.
oh, you did? Okay.
So was it under 18? I guess.
Under 21.
Under 21.
For the community board on police. It's a little bit different.
Okay. So when Max gets elected, could he be on both? He's 20 right now. So that would be the first of its.
He could not be the community youth member on the committee at that point. No.
Gotcha.
I believe township committee members cannot be members of
They can't
advisory
be members.
committees.
They can be liaisons to
Correct.
committees, but they can't be on the committee because it's meant to be a place where citizens can get together and do this work on their own without that kind of influence.
Awesome. So you got your event tonight, which again, if you're listening, that was last night. But you have your event tonight. But what's the primary is June
10th.
June 10th. What's life look for you until June 10th? What are you going to be doing? You knocking on doors, sending mailers out? I mean, what for anybody who's ever said, "Gee, I'd like to run for township committee someday." Maybe talk a little bit about what this process has been like, what your life's been like.
Yeah, so I'm going to be at a lot of events. So if you see me, say hi. I'll probably have some literature in my hands, a little palm card, if you may. I'm going to be hosting a bunch of events. I'm not sure if this will be live by the time it happens, but this Saturday, I'm having a concert event because part of my campaign is
great.
the arts. We need stronger
Where's that
support
gonna
for
be,
the
Max?
arts. It's going to be at somebody's house, and the flyer is not yet done, but it will be on my social media at Max for Maplewood, Instagram and Facebook.
So if people want to go to that event, they can check out your website.
Yes.
Yep.
And then also a lot of door knocking. I'm going to be on the streets, weather permitting, and the train station often as well in the mornings and the afternoons.
Yeah.
Just connecting with people, meeting them where they are.
So my son this weekend volunteered for the work at the David Lynch Film Festival, the film event they had in town.
And my son was working there.
And coincidentally, Ian's son was working there too. And you just showed us a picture, and guess who they ran into?
That's
they ran
it.
into you. So now you told us you're not a huge David Lynch fan, but you appreciate his art. But you made it up. You made an appearance. You showed up. You're taking time.
I didn't say I'm not a fan. I said that
He
I
hasn't seen a lot.
I haven't
of his.
seen a lot.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I very much enjoyed Wild at Heart. It was my first David
Good.
Lynch film. And
He's great.
yeah, and it was great being able to
Like
see the
Blue
movie.
Velvet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was great being able to see the movie with people in our community in
Yeah.
Maplewood Village, which hasn't been the case for a very long time. And that is all thanks to the amazing work that the Maplewood Film Society has been doing over the past few years.
100%. Now, I think it looked like from the pictures it was pretty busy, right?
Oh,
It
yeah,
looks-
it was
They had a
packed.
big crowd.
So we'll talk about the movie theater a little bit in town, and maybe you grew up in town. You obviously went with your friends to see the movies. It's a construction project. It's private development. I know there's very little the government, Ian Wright,
There's
can
very little the government
do
can do.
about that. But what are your thoughts on events like that and film and and I know film is important to you. Obviously, it's
Yeah,
something you
so
studied.
I'm more of a music guy, but film still falls under the category of the arts. Film is art.
Yeah.
And especially right now with everything going on in Washington and their attempts to kind of suppress the arts, if you look at what they're doing with the Kennedy Center, I think it's
Don't get me started.
more important than ever that we create strong infrastructure locally, strong institutions locally to engage with the arts and honor the arts and truly appreciate the art for what it is and understand why we value art. Really.
Sure.
And so on the topic of the movie theater, it is very unfortunate that we no longer have a movie theater in Maplewood.
Yeah.
And it's equally unfortunate that we no longer have one in South Orange. We don't
right.
have one in Milburn. I'm not sure where the closest one is, but it certainly isn't.
It's probably West Orange.
Yeah, Montclair.
But
right. Yeah.
that's a pretty significant drive, and it's not as accessible as Maplewood or South Orange, those theaters used to be. And so what I want to see happen is the township to step in, not to take control over the movie theater property, but at least create a better venue for our community to come together and do community events when it comes to movie screenings. The Woodland, it's an amazing venue.
Absolutely.
But
Not great acoustics.
Exactly. If you've been there, it doesn't sound that good. And I would like to see maybe the Bergdorf, maybe the new library, maybe even the 1978 Arts Center have some sort of capacity for long-term event production for screenings. And I mean, we have a history in our township of stage productions occurring regularly with the Strollers, with Interact at the Bergdorf.
Sure.
And I don't see any reason why it can't be the same for movies.
Right. And I want to step in here for a minute. We had Cinema Lab open at SOPAC, really, which was a tremendous concept. I mean, unfortunately, it opened during a bad time. It was during COVID. But the thing is, we all talk about wanting to support the arts here. We want to have arts venues that are utilized frequently here. But the community, guys, you got to come out and support them, right? If people are putting themselves out there and creating these places for us to enjoy the arts, please, folks in Maplewood and South Orange, get out there and support them. It's very, very important.
Yeah. Talking about the Woodland,
I think Max wanted to add something.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Answer. Then I got a question for you specific about the Woodland.
I should say that I believe the Cinema Lab closure was not entirely based on the demand of and the business of Cinema Lab, and I think there may have been other factors at play with that.
I just know every time I went to the movies there, there'd be 10 people in the theater.
The Woodland. So my son, by the way, Eli Navi, that's his stage name, Elijah Navlin. He graduated a few years before you. He's toured the world with Mia Gladstone. She was another SOMA grad.
I told Max about them.
Yeah, who's had. And I used to say to him, I said, "Why don't you guys do a show?" Because they've done shows in Paris, they've done shows in L.A. And why don't you do a show in Maplewood? And he would say, "Where?" And it's Woodland. What? You're a music guy. What can they do to make the sound a little more quality? I mean, is it a matter of putting in cushions, or sound barriers, or what? Could anything be done about that?
It as Ian said, it's not that simple.
Right.
They would the Maplewood Township Committee it would be a benefit for them to bring an acoustic engineer in,
Right.
To get a professional understanding of the space. Certainly, the roof of the room doesn't help with the acoustics.
Okay.
And I think that the venue could also benefit from a better audio system and a better lighting system.
Okay.
Technology has advanced a lot, especially in live video and audio in the last even 10 years.
Yeah.
And there's so many different ways that you can optimize a space and compact the tech stack. You could get a wireless board, a digital board that you can control from an iPad. You could control stuff over the internet, and all of that could make it easier to EQ the room from different angles.
EQ, what's that?
Equalize.
Got it.
So it's like the frequency editing.
Yep.
And so there's there's a lot you could do.
And that's something you would consider on the Township Committee,
certainly.
Okay,
that's something that I have been considering for years, from the first time I ever put on a concert there.
So for all you guys that are in bands, music, DJing, you vote for Max, and you may have the facility here in town that's
that you need.
That you need. Now, we do have some messages or some questions from the audience at large. Wow. One of the questions I was asked about you, they know you very well, Max, and the question is, I think it's really interesting how he talks about you, college degrees no longer guaranteeing employment, and how you think about municipalities can help our residents that are jobs, careers, AI. She kind of talks about all that. So these are things that are in your wheelhouse, things you talk about. So maybe I just threw a lot at you, but yeah.
Yeah. So We are living in a very interesting point in American history and world history, for that matter. We are currently, regardless of what anyone tells you, we are still recovering from the 2008 economic collapse.
Yeah, sure.
The way that we reorganized our economy after that with the bailouts, we probably could have done a lot differently to make it more equitable, that recovery. And on top of that, we're seeing artificial intelligence develop at a incredibly fast rate, which is kind of all but guaranteed to put a lot of people out of employment. And on top of that, social media companies have completely monopolized our attention and our communication. And it's very dark. And so a lot of people in college, my age, they're seeing not many jobs. There's not many jobs, and when they do find a job, it's not going to pay well. Especially right now, I have a lot of friends who are coming home for the summer. There's no work because a lot of people who are older have lost their jobs, and now they're working
They're
jobs
taking that part-time job,
Exactly.
For $20 an hour or whatever that a young college student may want to help pay their college loans. Yeah, no, it's definitely a different time. Yeah, and it's amazing that you're up on all that too.
No, yeah, and
it's you're really focused on so many things that would make this place a better place to live.
yeah, and on that
Yeah.
topic, we do need to understand as a community that we are living in these unprecedented times. Never before has there been an equivalent intelligence to humans. Whether it's true artificial general intelligence, which is the big buzzword, or it's just a very complicated, very high quality algorithm.
Yeah.
We do need to understand that this is here. It's not going away ever.
Yeah.
And we probably should prepare for what's coming, whatever that may be. Nobody knows what it's going to be, but we can assume what it may be. And what I think the best thing we can do to tackle that is create a stronger local economy, create more businesses here in Maplewood, whether they're micro businesses, industrial businesses like we've been seeing in the news about the Newark Way area, whether they're media production businesses. I think that's an area of very high potential here in Maplewood, especially with the passing of the recent, or not the passing, but the introduction of the New Jersey film blanket ordinance at the last Township Committee meeting.
Yep.
Maplewood is a place which has a lot of artists, a lot of working media industry professionals.
Right.
And I think that the easiest way for us to get more jobs here is to tap into that. But there's not much that you can do from the Township Committee perspective to achieve that. However, you can kind of get there with community organizing, connecting people, and having a cultural discussion of where we want to go as a community. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my friends are very concerned for their future. I'm very concerned for my future. That's part of why I'm running.
100%. Yeah, your generation needs to be concerned because this is, like you said, unprecedented times. I mean, 2008, you've had Trump. I mean, we don't know where this lands. Yeah, I mean, it's when I was your age, we got out of college and we got jobs and they were easy, and then we went out to drink at the bars, and by the time we were 30, we finally started to, like I said, we start to mature a little bit. But I think your generation is maturing much earlier.
Right, they have to.
Yeah, they absolutely have to. Talking about local businesses, this was the Township Committee. This is a good question, I think, for a guy your age. Has been talking about these cannabis lounges. Now, cannabis is legal now. We have quite a few of these dispensaries in town. Talk a little bit. Cannabis lounge, I guess, where we could actually go and we could actually smoke at the lounge. That's what they're discussing. What's your thoughts on this whole thing, and what might you do to, for that industry?
I mean, I think cannabis lounges are a very interesting idea. I definitely want to learn more about the track record of cannabis lounges in other areas of the world, and once they kind of spread around New Jersey, more about how they impact communities here in New Jersey. I mean, I'm a little bit immediately hesitant to it just because I've seen people around me and how they've used and potentially abused cannabis.
100%.
And I know there's the comparison to bars and alcohol. However, there is that the different component to cannabis is that it's psychoactive, and that I've seen people have some issues mentally after negative cannabis experiences. And so that is my concern. I'm sure there are instances that they have been implemented into communities safely around the world, but it's something that I do want to look into, because that could bring a lot of economic activity to our community, but it also could bring some cultural harm. And so we need to weigh those two very carefully. And I don't think we should rush into making any decision. I don't think we should decide right now, no, we don't want this, or yes, we want this. This should be a conversation that happens over probably the course of at least a year. Yeah. And the community should be involved with it every step of the way.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's a controlled substance, I guess. I guess it's considered, but yeah, you're right. The kid's smoking weed at 15, and then at 25, he's drinking too much, and maybe and who knows what other drugs. So it's still why we used to joke it's a gateway drug. Yeah, ha ha ha. Right. It's still it's something that needs to be taken thought about responsibly and taken seriously. And I appreciate the fact that a guy your age is doing that.
Yeah,
so.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ian. We're going to wrap things up in just a couple minutes.
So,
do you have any follow-up questions?
Anything else? I mean, I'm really thrilled, Max, that you came here today, and that you spoke about the things that are of concern to you and why you're running. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Even though you're not our endorsed candidate, I've been telling people I give so much credit to Max for doing this.
And that's the Maplewood Township. I mean, the Maplewood Democratic Committee's endorsed candidate. But again, that's just you get elected, and that's happened. Greg Lembrick and Malia Herman. And I don't think they did anything differently than you. They just gone out there and they said, okay, do you know who I am? No. Well, now you know who I am.
Exactly.
And that's.
You have to connect with voters. I mean, if you want to run for office, you don't just sit back and wait. You've got to get out there and work, and Max is doing that.
Yeah, so like Malia last year, I didn't know who she was, and then all of a sudden I see her signs, and then I see her all over town, and I'm running into her, and it's the same thing with you, and she's, you just say, hey, it's time for me to step up to the plate, and it's. It's like you have the first round draft pick, in football, and then but it's the guy undrafted free agent. That's the guy that becomes the Tom Brady, the 6th round pick. Go. Yeah, so here we go, right?
Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, right. You're the Tom Brady of Maplewood, right? You didn't draft me to the 6th round, but I'm going to tell you something right now, right? Yeah, you're not going to be able to get rid of me.
I'll put that on my website.
That's right. Yeah,
Very
the Tom
good.
Brady of
Very
Maplewood.
good.
That's right. Yes. So that's what I do. I brand Ian.
Very good.
Yes,
he's good at that.
I'm very good at that. So, Matt, anything else you want to say to the audience? I know you want them to vote for you. Tell them why they're going to vote for you.
Yeah. So as we covered, first of all, I want to thank you two for having me on the show. I'm a big fan. I'm honored to be in the presence of Legal Eagle Ian Grodman.
Legal Eagle, yes.
And Strawberry.
Okay, yes. Wow, there we go. Now, last time I was Strawberry, you were 5. So
you
really done your research.
Before Max was born. Yeah.
The great straw.
No, but I've been I've had an amazing experience running for the Maplewood Township Committee. I'm incredibly passionate about our community and where it's going. I decided to run because I didn't see an appropriate amount of tension, in my view, on the issues that I care about, whether that's from another candidate, whether that's from the current Maplewood Township Committee. I am driven. I want to get stuff done, and I want to get stuff done for our community. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me at maxformaplewood@gmail.com. You can visit maxformaplewood.com, and you can visit me on Instagram and Facebook at maxformaplewood. And I really hope that you consider voting for me on June 10th. And
All right. There you go,
I
Maplewood.
always tell people you got to ask for the vote.
That's what you
I'm
gotta
asking.
Ask for the vote. That's right. Ask for the vote, and you just asked. Yeah, and I think you should vote for him, guys. So I know I'm not actually necessarily here to endorse, but I am. I'm endorsing. What do you think of that? I want people to vote for Max because this is a great guy. This is a young man that's going to make a difference. And you know what? I like about today's Township Committee, and it wasn't always the case with me, especially. I love Daffis. I think he's a great guy. Nancy Adams is a wonderful mayor. Victor Luca is a legend in Maplewood politics. Deb Angle has worked very hard. Malia Herman is hit the ground running.
Good, you got everybody.
Yeah, you're right. So this is a great Township Committee.
It is. We
really,
always have a great Township Committee here.
One of my favorites. Now Deb has moved on and she's doing something else soon. And you'd be a wonderful addition because I just think the diversity and the intelligence and the experience and what better than having Nancy and Vic and Max? I mean, you and Dean. I mean, this is a cross section of Malia of the world right here. Right? I mean, Vic's he's in his 70s, right?
I believe so.
Right. So Nancy's in her 60s. Sorry, Nancy. Right. And Dean's in his 50s.
50s.
Right. Malia.
Early 50s.
Yeah, Malia's right in her 30s, and then you got right. Then you got the guy who's 20. Right. So then we got generations covered. So this makes more sense the more I think about it. So, all right. So Max, I guess we'll
Thank you, Max.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, it was great.
All right. So again, if you're a Yankee fan, also he's wearing a Yankee hat. Okay. So
if you're not a Yankee fan, my mom's a Red Sox fan, and I have Red Sox hats that I very often wear.
All right. My wife's from Boston. Okay. So that's good. You just and my mother-in-law who lives here at Winchester Gardens, she's from Boston. So you just got her vote on that one. So
There we
That's
go.
great.
Yeah, you're a Knicks fan, by the way. I don't know.
I saw the game last night.
You saw what happened last night. Ian, you saw what happened
I
last
did
night.
not. No.
They're up by 16 with like 4 minutes left, and they lost.
Yeah.
Went into overtime.
Went to overtime. Yeah, the ball bounced up in the air. It looked like it was gonna go. It was gonna go out, not go in, and it went in.
Were
And
you
tied
there,
the
Max, or
game.
did you watch
No,
it?
I watched it with my friends.
I watched it too. A lot of my neighbors are really, they can't wait for the basketball playoffs to be over with. They've been hearing too much. Last night, I think I actually might have kicked the hole in the wall.
Oops.
Yeah, and the walls are made out of cement where I live.
There we go.
Right, so, yeah, that's right.
Ooh.
No easy task. So, okay, so
Urgent
Max.
visit this morning.
Well, that's right. That's right. I don't like no wonder my foot. I can't walk. Right. So Max Kravitz. Until we do it again.
Until
All
we do
right.
it again.
Excellent.
All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Good night.
Good night.